The Grand Assembly Hall stretched across 3 kilometers of space. Representatives from 200 different species filled the floating seats that moved around the center stage like planets around a star. The air hummed with translation devices, turning alien words into understandable speech. Ambassador Taimin sat in the human section, his hands folded quietly in his lap. Around him, other human delegates whispered among themselves. But Taimin stayed silent. He watched the other species argue about trade routes and territory disputes, the same arguments they had been having for decades. High Chancellor Vexithera raised one of her crystal arms. The hall fell quiet. Her species, the ethereals, had been around longer than most others. When she spoke, everyone listened. Today, we discuss the expansion of trade routes through the Outer Rim sectors, she announced. Her voice echoed through the vast space. Several proposals have been submitted. A tall figure stood up from the military section. General Q1 of the Velkari Empire stepped forward. His gray skin gleamed under the lights, and his 4 arms moved as he talked. The Velkari were known for their aggression and their large military. The Velkari Empire requests permission to establish protective outposts near human space, Q1 said loudly. These primitive worlds need proper security. Pirates and raiders often attack weak targets. Murmurs spread through the hall. Some species nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. Taimin felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face calm. The humans have managed their space well for 300 years, spoke a delegate from the peaceful Altair Republic. Why do they need protection now? General Q1 laughed. The sound was harsh and mocking. 300 years? That is nothing. My people have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. These humans are babies playing with toy ships. They barely know how to leave their home planet. More laughter came from the Velkari section. Several other military species joined in. Taimin noticed how they all looked at the human delegates like they were amusing pets. The humans expanded too fast, Q1 continued. They took dozens of worlds before they understood the dangers of space. Now pirates attack their trade ships every week. Their colonies cry for help. We offer our protection for a small fee. And what happens if they refuse your protection? Asked an old voice from the back of the hall. Everyone turned to look. In the shadows sat Elder Zephi, one of the last, members of an ancient species called the Witnesses. Most people had forgotten they still existed. The old being was so thin and pale that he looked like a ghost. General Q1 frowned. They will not refuse. Smart species accept help when it is offered. Elder Zephi stood up slowly. His movements were shaky, like he was very old and tired. I remember stories from long ago, he said quietly. Stories about warnings. Do not provoke the humans, the old one said. Do not wake what sleeps. The hall erupted in laughter. Even some of the peaceful species chuckled. General Q1 slapped his knee with one of his 4 hands. Old stories. Fairy tales, Q1 shouted. Look at them. They have maybe 50 warships in their entire fleet. My empire has 50,000. These humans are nothing but clever apes who learn to use fire. Taimin felt something cold move through his chest. Beside him, another human delegate named Sora touched his arm gently. She was a scientist who studied old civilizations. Her face was pale with worry. Maybe we should listen to the old stories, Sora whispered, but only Taimin could hear her. Elder Zephi sat back down in the shadows. The young never listen to the old, he said sadly. They think strength is only about big ships and loud voices, but some kinds of strength sleep quietly until needed. High Chancellor Vexithara moved her crystal arms to restore order. The Federation will consider all proposals carefully. We value peace above all else. If the humans request protection, we will discuss terms. Until then, all species must respect existing boundaries. General Q1 nodded, but his smile was not friendly. Of course, Chancellor. The Velkari Empire always respects the law. We would never attack without permission. The session ended with various smaller discussions about trade agreements and scientific exchanges. As the delegates began to leave, Taemin stood up slowly. His legs felt heavy, like they were carrying a great weight. Sora walked beside him as they headed to the human transport. "I found something in my research yesterday," she said quietly. "Old records about human settlements. Something does not make sense." "What do you mean?" Taemin asked, though he already knew what she might have discovered. "The records show humans appearing in this galaxy about 300 years ago," Sora explained. "But there are no records of first contact, no stories about meeting humans for the first time. It is like everyone just forgot how humans arrived here." Taemin said nothing. They walked through the corridors of the space station in silence. Around them, other species talked loudly about business deals and political alliances. None of them seemed worried about the Velkari threats. "There is something else," Sora continued. "I found references to something called the Great Withdrawal. The records are damaged, but they mention humans and some kind of empire. The dates are all wrong, though. They go back 50,000 years." They reached the human transport ship. As they climbed aboard, Taemin finally spoke. "Be careful with your research, Sora. Some knowledge is dangerous." "Dangerous how?" she asked. Taemin looked out the window at the vast space station. Thousands of ships from hundreds of different worlds moved around it like busy insects. All of them thought they understood how the galaxy worked. None of them remembered the truth. "Some secrets are kept for good reasons," he said quietly. "The galaxy is peaceful now. People live and grow and learn without fear. Sometimes it is better to let the past stay buried." But even as he said it, Taemin knew that the past was already stirring. General Q1 would not listen to warnings. The Velkari Empire would push forward with their plans. And when they did, they would discover that some sleeping things were better left alone. As their ship flew back toward human space, Taemin sent a coded message to Earth. 3 words that had not been used for centuries. "They are coming." Irritur. In hidden facilities across human worlds, ancient systems began to wake up. The long sleep was almost over. The first strike came at dawn on New Sol Colony. 30 Velkari battleships dropped out of hyperspace above the peaceful farming world. The colonists below looked up to see massive shadows blocking their sun. Colony Administrator Yun Ki was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He ran to the communication center where his staff was frantically trying to contact the orbital defense stations. "Sir, the platforms are not responding," reported Communications Officer Yan Wu. "The Velkari ships took them out in the first wave." Junki felt cold fear grip his chest. New Sol had 12 million people. Most were farmers and their families. They had never seen real war. "Send an emergency signal to Earth. Tell them we are under attack." Above the planet, General Q1 watched his ships move into bombardment positions. "Begin with the spaceports and industrial centers," he ordered. "Leave the farms alone. We will need the food production later." Red energy beams lanced down from the Velkari ships. Explosions bloomed across the planet's surface as the capital city's defenses were destroyed. The colonists huddled in their homes waiting for the end, but the end did not come. Instead, space around New Sol suddenly filled with new ships. They appeared without warning, as if they had materialized from nothing. Sleek vessels with smooth hulls and strange weapon arrays moved between the Velkari fleet and the planet below. "Where did they come from?" Q1 demanded. "Sensors show nothing. How did they get past our detection grid?" His sensor officer stared at his instruments in confusion. "General, the ships appear to be human design, but their energy signatures are impossible. They are generating more power than our largest dreadnoughts." On the lead human ship, Commander Deho watched the Velkari fleet with calm eyes. His vessel, the Silent Guardian, had been hidden in a pocket dimension for over 200 years. Now it was time to remind the galaxy why humans were feared. "Signal to all Velkari vessels," Deho said quietly. "You have 10 seconds to withdraw from this system. If you do not leave immediately, you will be destroyed." General Q1 laughed when he heard the message. 10 seconds. There are only 12 human ships. We have 30. Show these fools what Velkari firepower can do. The Velkari fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the human ships. The space between the fleets lit up like a deadly fireworks display. When the light faded, the human ships were still there, completely undamaged. Impossible, Q1 whispered. Nothing can withstand that much firepower. Commander Deho checked his chronometer. 10 seconds have passed. You chose poorly. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for generations. The human ships moved like dancers, flowing around Velkari attacks with impossible grace. Their weapons fired beams of pure, silver light that cut through enemy armor like paper. In 30 seconds, half the Velkari fleet was destroyed. The surviving ships tried to flee, but they could not escape. The human vessels moved faster than anything should be able to move, hunting down the invaders one by one. General Q1's flagship was the last to die. As silver light tore through his bridge, his final thought was a single word. How? Similar scenes played out at 2 other human colonies. Velkari fleets arrived expecting easy victories and found themselves facing enemies beyond their understanding. Within 6 hours, 3 entire invasion forces had been wiped out. On Earth, President Nari stood in the command center deep beneath the planet's surface. Around her, screens showed the galaxy-wide communication network coming alive with reports and rumors. Ma'am, all 3 colonial attacks have been repelled, reported General Hyun-soo. Velkari casualties are 100%. We suffered no losses. And the rest of their fleet? Emperor Korthak is mobilizing everything he has. Our observers report over 10,000 ships moving toward human space. He intends to overwhelm us with numbers. President Nari nodded sadly. Then it is time. Activate Protocol 7. Send the message. General Hyun-soo hesitated. Ma'am, once we do this, there will be no going back. The secret will be out. The galaxy will know. The galaxy chose this path when they ignored the warnings, Nari replied. We tried to live quietly. We tried to let them grow and learn in peace. But some species only understand strength. The message went out on all frequencies, in all languages. President Nari's face appeared on screens across known space, from the Federation capital to the furthest rim worlds. People of the galaxy, she began, her voice calm but heavy with sadness. For 300 years, humanity has lived peacefully among you. We have traded fairly, fought justly, and asked for nothing but the right to exist. We hoped this day would never come. In the Federation Assembly, Ambassador Tae Min watched the broadcast with the other delegates. The hall was completely silent. Everyone could sense that something momentous was happening. Today, the Velkari Empire attacked 3 human colonies without provocation. President Nari continued. They murdered innocent civilians and declared their intention to conquer all human worlds. They did this believing we were weak. They were wrong. Images flashed on the screens. Velkari ships burning in space. Human vessels moving with impossible speed and power. Weapons that no one had ever seen before. You were warned, President Nari said, her voice growing stronger. Your oldest stories, your ancient texts, your wisest elders all carried the same message. Do not provoke the humans. You thought these were fairy tales. You forgot that some stories are based on truth. In the far reaches of space, Elder Zeph-Hai watched the broadcast from his small ship. His ancient eyes filled with tears of recognition and terror. He had been young when the humans first withdrew from the galaxy. He remembered the relief that followed, the sense that a great shadow had been lifted from all their worlds. Now, the shadow was returning. Humanity once ruled this galaxy, President Nari revealed. We commanded fleets that spanned 100,000 worlds. We could have conquered everything, enslaved everyone. Instead, we chose to withdraw. We chose to give you the chance to grow, to learn, to become what you were meant to be. Gasps echoed through the Federation Assembly. Some delegates fell from their floating seats in shock. The implications hit them like physical blows. We hoped you would become wise enough that we would never need to return to our old ways, the president continued. We were wrong. Some of you have chosen the path of aggression and conquest. You force us to remember what we tried so hard to forget. The image changed to show massive fleets emerging from hidden bases, ships larger than space stations, weapons that could crack planets, technology that made current galactic civilization look primitive. The Velkari Empire wanted to see human strength, President Nari concluded. They will have their wish. To all other species watching this broadcast, know that humanity bears you no ill will. We seek only to restore peace. But to those who would harm innocent people, who would conquest and enslave and destroy, we say this: you have awakened something that should have stayed sleeping, and now you will face the consequences. The broadcast ended. For a long moment, the galaxy was silent. Then chaos erupted as every government, every military, every leader began frantically trying to understand what they had just learned. The humans were not newcomers to the galaxy. They were its former masters returning to reclaim their throne, and they were very, very angry. The bridge of the Velkari command ship Dominion's Edge buzzed with activity. General Q-Wan stood at the center, watching screens that showed dozens of his warships moving through space. Each ship was massive, built for war and intimidation. Their dark hulls gleamed with weapon ports and shield generators. "Report," Q-Wan demanded. His aide, a younger Velkari named Tokvar, stepped forward. 30 human merchant vessels intercepted in the past week, General. All cargo inspected. We found nothing illegal, but we confiscated some items for further study. Good. The humans need to learn that nothing moves through our space without permission. Q-Wan smiled, showing his sharp teeth. What about their response? They filed formal complaints with the Federation. Standard diplomatic protests, nothing more. Q-Wan laughed. The humans were even weaker than he thought. Any strong species would have sent warships by now. Instead, they sent paperwork. Far away, Captain Mi Young was piloting her exploration ship Harmony's Dawn through the Veil Nebula. Her crew of 12 humans was conducting scientific surveys, mapping the strange energy patterns inside the colorful gas clouds. It was peaceful work, the kind that made her happy to be in space. "Captain, we are picking up something strange," called her navigation officer, a young man named Wu Jin. "Energy readings are off the charts about 2 kilometers ahead." Mi Young frowned and checked her instruments. "Could be a natural phenomenon. This nebula is full of surprises. Take us closer, but keep shields up." As they moved forward, the swirling gases of the nebula parted to reveal something impossible. A massive structure floated in the center of the energy storm. It looked ancient, covered in symbols that no human had ever seen before. "Amazing," whispered Dr. Huan Su, their science officer. "This could be a relic from the early days of the galaxy. We need to document everything." But before they could begin their scans, space around them filled with enemy ships. 6 Velkari attack vessels dropped out of hyperspace, surrounding the small human explorer. "Unknown vessel, you are trespassing in claimed territory," came a harsh voice over the radio. "Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Mi Young felt her heart race. "This is Captain Mi Young of the exploration vessel Harmony's Dawn. We are conducting scientific research under Federation treaties. This nebula is neutral space." "Not anymore," the Velkari commander replied. "All territory within 50 light-years of Velkari space now belongs to the Empire. Your ship will be confiscated. Your crew will be taken for questioning." "We have done nothing wrong," Mi Young protested. "I demand to speak with your superior officer." The response was a barrage of weapon fire. Red energy beams struck Harmony's Dawn from all directions. The small ship's shields flared and died within seconds. More shots hit the hull, tearing through metal and systems. "Hull breach on deck 3, Wu Jin shouted over the sound of alarms. "Life support failing." Mi Young fought to keep her ship stable as it spun out of control. "Emergency power to engines. Send a distress signal to any human ships in range." The Velkari ships moved closer, preparing to board the damaged explorer. But before they could attach their docking tubes, Harmony's Dawn activated its emergency jump drive. The small ship vanished in a flash of blue light, leaving the angry Velkari behind. 3 days later, the damaged ship limped into Luna Station, the human base orbiting Earth's moon. Commander Bin Wu met Captain Mi Young at the medical bay. Her arm was in a cast and burns covered the left side of her face. They attacked without warning, Myung reported. We were conducting legal research in neutral space. They said all territory near Velkari space now belongs to them. Commander Binwoo nodded grimly. This was the 5th unprovoked attack in 2 weeks. The Velkari were getting bolder, testing human responses. Did you get clear scans of their ships? Yes, sir. Wu Jin recorded everything before the attack. But, Commander, there was something else. We found an ancient structure in the nebula, something old and important. The Velkari might have been protecting it. Admiral Jae-sung arrived at Luna Station the next morning. He was a calm man with gray hair and steady eyes. Other admirals might have been angry about the attacks, but Jae-sung just seemed thoughtful. He studied the reports and watched the recordings of the Velkari attack. They are pushing boundaries, he said to his staff. Testing our resolve. How many ships do we have ready for deployment? 43 vessels in the immediate Earth defense fleet, reported his aide. Another dozen patrol ships scattered across our colonies. Admiral Jae-sung nodded. It seemed like a small number compared to the thousands of ships the Velkari claimed to have. But he did not look worried. Instead, he activated a secure communication link to Earth's government. President Nari appeared on the screen. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, but her expression was serious. Admiral, I have been reading the reports. Are we moving to the next phase? The Velkari have made their intentions clear, Jae-sung replied. They will not stop with intimidation. Emperor Korthak believes humans are weak prey. And what do our observers report about Velkari military strength? Impressive numbers, but their tactics are crude. They rely on overwhelming force rather than strategy. Their ships are large but slow. Most importantly, they have no idea what they are really dealing with. President Nari was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was sad. We hoped this day would never come. 300 years of peace. 300 years of letting them think we were just another young species trying to find our place in the galaxy. The charade is ending, Admiral Jae-sung agreed. Should I activate the contingency protocols? Not yet. Give them one more chance to step back. Send a formal warning through diplomatic channels. If they ignore it, she paused. If they ignore it, then we do what we must. The warning was delivered to Emperor Korthak on his throne world of Veltaran. The message was simple. Cease all hostile actions against human ships and territories or face the consequences. Emperor Korthak read the message and burst into laughter. His court joined in, filling the great hall with mocking voices. The emperor was a massive being even for a Velkari. His forearms were covered in scars from countless battles, and his eyes glowed with cruel intelligence. Consequences, he roared. These pathetic humans threaten us? They have 50 ships, we have 50,000. General Q-wan, show these apes what happens when prey tries to fight predators. General Q-wan bowed deeply. It will be my pleasure, Emperor. Should we target their colonies first or attack Earth directly? Start with their outer worlds. Let them watch their empire crumble piece by piece. When they beg for mercy, then we will discuss terms. Orders went out across the Velkari fleet. Thousands of warships began moving toward human space. The largest invasion force in Velkari history was about to teach the galaxy an important lesson about power. But deep in hidden bunkers across human worlds, ancient computers were receiving different orders. Systems that had slept for centuries began to wake up. Weapons platforms hidden in asteroid fields started their activation sequences. Ships emerged from concealed bases, their hulls bearing symbols that had not been seen in galactic space for thousands of years. The galaxy was about to remember why the old warnings existed, and why some sleeping giants should never be disturbed. Dr. Sora stood in the archive chamber deep beneath Seoul's University District. Around her, ancient machines hummed to life for the first time in centuries. The walls were covered with crystalline storage devices that glowed with soft blue light. Each crystal contained the memories of humanity's lost empire. Access granted to Level 7 archives, announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Welcome, Keeper Sora. It has been 47,382 standard years since these records were last accessed. Sora felt her hands shake as she approached the central console. As a xenoarchaeologist, she had dreamed of discoveries like this, but the reality was overwhelming. 47,000 years of hidden history was about to unfold before her eyes. "Show me the beginning," she whispered. The chamber filled with holographic images. Stars and planets appeared around her, but they were not the stars she knew. This was another galaxy entirely, one where blue suns burned brighter and strange nebulae painted space in colors that had no names. Humanity originated in the Andromeda Galaxy, the archive explained. We were refugees fleeing a cosmic disaster that consumed our homeworlds. When we arrived in this galaxy 68,000 years ago, we were desperate and few in number. The images shifted to show small human ships limping through space. They were damaged and overcrowded, filled with survivors of some great catastrophe. Sora watched as these ancient humans searched for safe harbor among the stars. The local species were kind to us at first, the archive continued. The ethereals, the Altarians, the witnesses, they offered us shelter and resources. But as our population grew, tensions arose. Some species saw us as a threat. Others tried to enslave us. Sora saw the gradual change in human technology. The refugee ships became more advanced, more powerful. Human colonies spread across thousands of worlds. What had started as grateful refugees slowly transformed into something else. The hegemony wars lasted 3,000 years, the archive said sadly. Humanity fought for survival, then for freedom, then for dominance. We won because we had to win. The alternative was extinction. Images of ancient battles filled the chamber. Human fleets clashing with alien armadas above burning worlds. Cities falling to human armies. Species after species submitting to human rule. Sora watched in fascination and horror as her ancestors built an empire that spanned the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the other side of Earth, Young-Ho was making his own shocking discovery. The young historian had been researching his family genealogy when President Nari's broadcast changed everything. Now he stood in his grandmother's house looking at documents that suddenly made sense. "Grandmother, these family records go back 50,000 years, he said, his voice full of wonder. How is that possible? His grandmother, a small woman, named Malsoon, smiled sadly. Because our family has been keeping the records for 50,000 years, Young-Ho. We are one of the keeper families. We remember what others forgot. She led him to a hidden room behind her kitchen. Inside were books, scrolls, and data crystals that contained the true history of their bloodline. Young-Ho's ancestors had been admirals and governors, scientists and explorers in the ancient human empire. Why did no one tell me? Young-Ho asked. Because we swore an oath, Malsoon replied. When humanity withdrew from the galaxy, we promised to keep the secrets. We became ordinary people living ordinary lives. We waited and watched and hoped this day would never come. Across the galaxy, Ambassador Taemin was having a similar conversation with High Chancellor Vexthara. The crystalline being had called an emergency session of the Federation Council. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in shocked silence. You knew, Vexthara said, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. All these years you knew what humanity really was. Taemin nodded slowly. I am a watcher. My family has served in that role for 8 generations. We were tasked with maintaining the Great Deception. Deception? The word came from several delegates at once. Humanity could have revealed the truth at any time, Taemin explained. We could have demanded tribute, claimed our old territories, ruled you as we once did. Instead, we chose to pretend we were newcomers. We let you believe you were independent. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates. Everything they thought they knew about galactic history was wrong. The trade routes, the territorial disputes, even the location of Federation headquarters, all of it had been influenced by human suggestions over the centuries. On the rim world of Vex Prime, Elder Zephi was telling a different part of the story to anyone who would listen. His species, the Witnesses, were one of the few who remembered the old empire firsthand. They ruled justly, he said to a gathering of younger beings. That was what made them so terrifying. If they had been cruel tyrants, we could have hated them. Instead, they were wise and fair and utterly unbeatable. The young aliens listened with growing fear as HFY described the ancient human empire. It had not been built on slavery or oppression. Instead, the humans had guided other species, protected them from external threats, and helped them develop their civilizations. Why did they leave? Asked a young Altarian. Because they realized what they had become, HFY replied. Humanity saw that their protection was making other species weak. We were like children who never learned to walk because our parents always carried us, so they chose to step back and let us grow. Back in the archive chamber, Dr. Sora was learning the same lesson. The holographic records showed her the great council that made the decision to withdraw. It had been a debate that lasted for decades, with passionate arguments on all sides. Many humans wanted to maintain the empire, the archive explained. They argued that younger species needed guidance and protection, but others believed that true growth could only come through independence and struggle. Sora watched as human leaders made the most difficult decision in their species' history. They would abandon their empire, hide their technology, and pretend to be just another young species finding its way in the galaxy. The withdrawal took 200 years to complete, the archive continued. Entire fleets were hidden in pocket dimensions. Planetary defense systems were buried deep underground. Advanced technologies were locked away in secret vaults. The images showed massive human ships disappearing into folds in space-time. Weapons platforms sinking into the crusts of dead worlds. Entire civilizations packing up and moving to remote colonies where they could live simple lives. Earth was chosen as our new home because it was isolated and unremarkable, the archive said. The perfect place for a species to start over. Sora felt tears streaming down her face as she watched humanity sacrifice everything for the good of other species. They had given up power beyond imagination because they believed it was the right thing to do. For 300 years, the Watchers maintained the deception, the archive concluded. Human agents spread across the galaxy, ensuring that no one remembered the truth. Trade agreements were guided, conflicts were prevented, and younger species were protected without them knowing it. As the records ended, Sora understood the full tragedy of the current situation. Humanity had tried to retire gracefully, to let other species take their place as the galaxy's leaders. But some species had interpreted human restraint as weakness. The Velkari Empire had awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. And now the galaxy would have to face the consequences of forgetting the old warnings. In space above Velkari territory, human fleets were gathering. Ships emerged from hidden bases that had waited centuries for activation. The technology was old but still far beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun stood on the bridge of the flagship Legacy Eternal. The massive vessel had been the pride of the ancient human navy. Now it was returning to service for the first time in 300 years. All fleets report ready, Admiral, his aide announced. Dong Hyun nodded grimly. He had hoped to live his entire life without needing to use these ships. But the Velkari had made their choice, and now humanity would make theirs. Begin the advance, he ordered. Let us remind the galaxy why the old warnings existed. The Velkari homeworld of Veltaran had never seen defeat. For 10,000 years it had been the center of an expanding empire built on conquest and military might. Its skies were filled with orbital fortresses, its space lanes protected by the largest fleet in known history. Emperor Korthak stood in his war room, watching tactical displays that showed the approaching human forces. His forearms gestured angrily as he studied the numbers. 12,000 ships? He roared. That is impossible. Intelligence reports said humans had fewer than 100 vessels total. His military advisors cowered before their emperor's rage. General Vektar, who had replaced the deceased Q1, spoke carefully. Sire, our scouts report that human ships are emerging from locations that our sensors show as empty space. They appear to be using some kind of dimensional storage technology. Korthak slammed one fist on the table. I don't care what technology they use. We have 50,000 ships, numbers will crush them. But even as he spoke, reports were flooding in from across Valkyrie space. Human fleets had appeared at 17 different systems simultaneously. They moved with perfect coordination, striking military targets while carefully avoiding civilian areas. On the bridge of Legacy Eternal, Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. His ships moved through Valkyrie, defenses like sharks through schools of fish. The enemy fought bravely, but their tactics were centuries behind human capabilities. "Admiral, we have reports from all task forces," his communications officer announced. "Valkyrie fleet strength reduced by 60% in the first 4 hours. They are falling back to defend their core worlds." Dong Hyun nodded. The Valkyrie were learning what many species had learned long ago, that numbers meant nothing when facing superior technology and strategy. Captain Yoon-ji commanded the assault on the Valkyrie fortress world of Kethvar. Her ship, the Righteous Fury, led a squadron of fast attack vessels through the system's defensive grid. The space around the planet was thick with enemy ships and weapon platforms. "Captain, we are detecting over 3,000 defensive positions," her tactical officer reported. "Recommendation: bombard from long range." "Negative," Yoon-ji replied. "There are civilian populations on that planet. We go in precision strikes only. Take out the military installations, leave everything else untouched." Her crew looked surprised. In the old days of the Empire, human forces had been known for their overwhelming firepower. But Yoon-ji represented the new philosophy: victory without unnecessary destruction. The battle for Kethvar lasted 6 hours. When it ended, every Valkyrie military facility had been destroyed, but the cities below remained intact. The human ships had fired with surgical precision, avoiding any target that might harm non-combatants. News of the defeat spread quickly through Valkyrie space. On the industrial world of Mordak, factory workers watched in amazement as human ships appeared in their skies. Instead of attacking, the vessels broadcasted a message. "People of Mordak," came a calm human voice. "We are not your enemies. We seek only to end your government's aggression. Continue your daily lives. You will not be harmed." The workers looked up to see human ships hovering protectively over their factories and homes. When Valkyrie military forces tried to use civilian areas as shields, the human vessels simply waited. They would not fire a single shot that might endanger innocent lives. This pattern repeated across dozens of worlds. The human forces displayed overwhelming military superiority combined with unexpected restraint. They could have conquered every Valkyrie world in days. Instead, they carefully dismantled only the military infrastructure while protecting civilian populations. On Veltaran, Emperor Korthak received increasingly desperate reports from his commanders. Human fleets had surrounded his homeworld, cutting off all escape routes. But they made no move to attack the planet itself. "What are they waiting for?" Korthak demanded. His answer came in the form of a communication request from the human fleet. A holographic image appeared in the throne room, a middle-aged human woman in a simple uniform. "I am Captain Yoon-ji of the Human Defense Forces," she said calmly. "Emperor Korthak, your military has been defeated. Your fleets are destroyed. Your empire is finished. But your people do not need to suffer for your mistakes." Korthak snarled at the image. "You dare speak to me of defeat? I still have 10,000 ships protecting this world." "No," Yoon-ji replied sadly. "You have 10,000 ships trapped around this world. Our forces could destroy them in minutes. We choose not to because we remember what we learned long ago. That true strength comes from protecting life, not taking it." As if to prove her point, the space around Veltaran suddenly filled with human vessels. They appeared from nowhere, completely surrounding the Valkyrie fleet. The Emperor's ships were outnumbered 5-1. "You have a choice," Captain Yoon-ji continued. "Surrender now, and your people will be treated with dignity. Your soldiers will be disarmed but not harmed. Your civilians will be protected. Refuse, and we will do what we must to end this war." Korthak looked around his throne room at his advisors. All of them had terror in their eyes. They had seen the reports from other battles. Human forces fought with a precision and power that made resistance futile. What? What do you want from us? The Emperor asked, his voice much quieter than before. Peace, Yunji replied simply. An end to aggression. A promise that the Velkari Empire will never again attack innocent people. In return, we will help you rebuild your military as a defensive force and assist your colonies in becoming self-sufficient. The Emperor stared at the human captain in confusion. You would help us after we attacked you? We remember being in your position once, Yunji said sadly. Long ago, humanity made the same mistakes you are making now. We learned that conquest brings only misery. We hope you can learn the same lesson without suffering as much as we did. The surrender of the Velkari Empire sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Other aggressive species that had been planning their own attacks on human territory suddenly reconsidered their positions. The speed and completeness of the Velkari defeat was beyond anything they had imagined possible. On the rim world of Caraxes, the Saurian Confederacy's War Council held an emergency session. They had been allies of the Velkari, providing ships and supplies for the invasion of human space. 36 hours, General Sekmorth hissed to his fellow commanders. The humans destroyed the largest military force in the galaxy in 36 hours, and they did it while protecting civilian populations. The implications were terrifying. If humanity could defeat the Velkari so easily, what chance did any other species have? But even more frightening was the restraint the humans had shown. They could have slaughtered billions, but they chose mercy instead. Send a message to the human fleet, ordered Supreme Commander Velrain. Tell them the Saurian Confederacy wishes to discuss terms of peace. Similar messages began arriving from across the galaxy. Species that had been preparing for war suddenly found themselves desperately seeking diplomatic solutions. The human demonstration of power had achieved what centuries of negotiations could not: a galaxy-wide recognition that aggression would not be tolerated. Back on Earth, President Nari stood in the Situation Room watching reports from across human space. The contingency protocols had worked perfectly. The hidden fleets had emerged exactly as planned. The ancient weapons had functioned flawlessly after centuries of storage. Casualties? She asked General Hyun-Soo. Minimal on our side. 17. Injured, none killed. Velkari military losses are severe, but we estimate civilian casualties at less than 3,000 across their entire empire. Nari nodded with relief. The new human military doctrine emphasized precision over power. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy was designed to neutralize enemies while protecting innocent lives. And the other species? 43 governments have requested peace negotiations. The Galactic Federation is calling for an emergency session to discuss the new situation. Ambassador Taemin reports that most species are more confused than angry. Good. Confusion is better than fear. Fear leads to desperation, and desperate people make poor choices. General Hyun-Soo looked thoughtful. Ma'am, there is one concern. Some of our younger officers are asking why we didn't reveal our capabilities sooner. They think we could have prevented many galactic conflicts if other species had known the truth. President Nari sighed. It was a question she had wrestled with for decades. Because power corrupts, General. The moment we became the galaxy's police force again, we would stop being its guardians. Other species need to learn to solve their own problems. We can only intervene when they threaten the innocent. As reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy, it became clear that the human demonstration had achieved its goal. The age of aggressive expansion was over. Species that had been planning conquests were suddenly interested in peaceful cooperation. But President Nari knew this was only the beginning. Revealing humanity's true nature had solved one problem while creating many others. The galaxy now knew that their supposed equals were actually their former masters. How they would react to that knowledge would determine the future of galactic civilization. The sleeping giant had awakened. Now it had to decide what kind of galaxy it wanted to wake up to.